In this next hour or so, we're going to explore a Swift code kata that is an exercise where we add tests to existing code. Namely, that's the good the definition that Michael Feathers proposes for legacy code. So welcome. Say hello in the chat. And I killed the music, Mudshark. It was an experiment, and actually it was an experiment that went wrong because in my upgrade of OBS, it like changed some channel settings, and that music is not supposed to go out. It's supposed to get to live viewers, and it's not supposed to get to the recording, which messed things up. So it was actually good that partway through last time I shut off the music, and it bothered one person. That's enough. So I guess if you want background music, put on your own. And hello, Andrea, Cobra Andrea. Welcome, and a first-time chatter. Glad to have you. We have a few folks here. My name is John Reed. I am a coach and a trainer with Industrial Logic, where I will be, if you go to Quality Coding, my site, I've got this big ad at the top right now for my next public workshop. So this is, if I were to describe what this workshop is, it's like how John Reed likes to do iOS. If you've been following me a while, you know some of the things I care about, namely fast feedback. Like this course would be all about how do we develop using principles of fast feedback. So folks who are regulars here, this is probably old hat, but if you know somebody, like in particular, if there's an employee at your company who's new, they're just getting started in iOS, or they're mid-level and they could use some technical chops, not the Swifty things, the actual, like, how do we code and how do we code together things, and how do we get fast feedback? And in the process, I'll teach things about like storyboards, and we'll get to Swift UI at the very end. That won't be a feature of this workshop. It's going to be UIKit, mostly UIKit based. So that's my ad. What else to say? Got a few. Well, let's get coding. Now, last time was my first time back in a while, and I made some errors as far as like, I tried to demonstrate how I like tests on the left and production code on the right. Well, I already have this screen sized down to be better for folks watching on small devices, and it's down, and I'm using a smaller area of it, and I'm using a large font. So I don't have the space to show tests on the left and code on the right. So back we go to just flipping back and forth. Also, I tried using the new UI, and last time kind of struggled through it. But over the past week, I tried using it at work, not in AppCode, but in WebStorm, because I am doing development in JavaScript. And I tried to give it a fair shake, saying I'm just not used to it. It looks nice, but actually it hides things from me because it cleans things up in a nice way. That means it hides some things, and that also means some things just aren't accessible. That was getting in the way of my workflow. So I've decided, besides, I'm using AppCode and kind of who cares how you use it. It's on death's door anyway. Now, I hope to use it for the next year and more. You can pull it out of my fingers when it's cold and dead. So, what are we doing? I do. So this is a code kata called trip service, where it has this one method that's doing. The idea is that it's a social network for travelers, and you can see what your friends' trips are. And so if we say get trips, well, are you logged in? Do you have friends? Are you friends? And so forth. So this is a fairly complicated piece of code. If you look at this and say, it's simple, I want to encourage you that you have become used to pressing through complicated code. And the goal is not to get good at pressing through complicated code. The goal is to make clear, bright, expressive code that is easy to change. This is not. So, last time we started down this road of test if the user is not logged in, that it throws an error. Let me run all the tests. And take a sip of coffee. And I'll back up and show what happens if I just use the regular trip service like that and call it. I get a fatal error. And the fatal error is because this is making a call to get the current user. Where is that? Which is doing something that we shouldn't do, shouldn't do during microtests. So the way around that is the classic trick from working effectively with legacy code. I can't talk today. Of extract and override. So this used to look like, I'll just show you. I'm not going to inline it because it's going to muck up the other thing. It used to have the call directly in here to go to the user session, the shared instance, and get the logged in user. So instead I did an extract, and then in the test code, I create a subclass. And this is the common naming pattern that I like. We want a trip service that we can write tests against. And so this is a testable trip service. So if we reset this, and the testable trip service has a notion of, like, instead of actually calling the current user, just pass back whatever, stub the results. And this, Mudjark is right. This is a very useful technique when you're dealing with statics or globals. Anytime you're dealing with code that is really structured against testability. So very much legacy code. This is a good technique. Now, you can't use subclass and override with everything, right? Because there are things in Swift that you can't subclass. We use a different technique for that. And that's, once again, I wish I could, like, show you the power of saying, instead of making this a method, let's extract it as a closure. Map code. And once it's a closure, that is, once it's a function that it's held onto, then the test code can say, okay, instead of doing that for getting the current user, do this other fake thing instead. So there we are. Our test should be back in green. And let's keep going. We have, oh, and the coverage is, just to confirm that we're getting down here, and you can see that this is green. And that's where we are. What's next? Well, all this other stuff. Let's go. So if we get a logged in user, somebody is logged in, but they have no friends. The trip list, I think the trip list should be like empty. So let's do that. That should be doable. And I'm just going to start, who knows where this is going to go. Test, kind of a user with no friends. Aw, so sad. Oops. I'm going to create the same trip service. And this time I'm going to set the logged in user to something. Well, it's going to be another user, and I don't know who, but I'll just say, I'll just make a user. And then if we say, get the trips, I'm pretty sure this is checking if dummy user is a friend, that this should get some sort of result. Yes, like that. I don't like the optional, but I'm not going to change the API. Like, it should just return an empty array. This is maybe a little too faithful to Java translation. Oh, it looks like it starts nil. Here's one of the rules about legacy code. Whatever it does, you want to keep it. The current behavior is valuable. If I were to change this and say, you know, nil doesn't make sense. It should start off as an empty array. And I'm so proud of myself. And then everything breaks because there's code out there elsewhere in the system that I'm not aware of that is depending on like a nil check. Ooh, and the whole thing falls down. This is the rule of refactoring is we do not change behavior. We don't even change bugs. You don't fix a bug when you're refactoring. The behavior has got to be the same, feature for feature and bug for bug. So I think I can say the trips should be nil. And let's try it and see. We should see 2 tests pass. There we are. All right. So that's a commit. Oh, I don't want to push. There is no upstream. And you know, it occurs to me, since I'm doing a pure refactoring, TCR is ideal for this. Yeah, we can see the test fail. Absolutely. Let me break it by saying, let's return empty. It's always a good step. when you write a test for existing code, still want to see the test fail. Thank you, Muchart. You still want to see the test fail. So let's turn on TCR. TCR. And on past test, I'll have it open the commit dialog. I guess, for now. And don't revert files. No, that's going to be fine. All right, let's go to TCR. If you haven't seen me do TCR, that's test and commit or revert. If the tests pass, it will commit. Otherwise, it will revert. For example, let me break the code again and run the tests, and this should go back the way it was. Poop is the technical term. So now, the next layer in, kind of going down this pyramid of doom, is we got a logged in user, but we didn't have any friends, so we sort of skip over all that. But the next one down is to get the trips for an actual friend. But before I do that, pause. Refactor, John. Clean up. We got duplicate code. Let's clean this up. Let us friend with no trips. Nice. That's good. So let me move this. Actually, I'm going to split it into declaration. Let me slow down and show what I'm doing. First, I'm going to add an explicit type. Then I'm going to split it into the declaration, which moves up here. And change this to a var, an optional, an implicitly unwrapped optional, and I'll just also make it private. And move this into setup. And then in teardown, set it to nil. And everything should still pass. You know, at this point, I feel like I don't want to fill out all these changes. So I'm going to say TCR. And let me change this, instead of prompting me, just use the last. Just commit and use the message from the last commit. All right. Is there anything else? Trip service, logged in user, and this really isn't a dummy in this case. This is like somebody who's not a friend, or it's not that they don't have friends, it's that this person isn't a friend. We'll come back to this. But who is this? This is the logged in user. I may explore this later. You can always come back and clean up some more things. But one thing I want to do is, I think, remove the explicit type there. That's probably good. Okay. All right. So a friend with no trips. This will be interesting. Let's do it. Let me Hmm. Friend with no trips. How's this going to work? It's not going to be the dummy. This has to be a friend. So let me just describe it. And I'm not sure that it should be nil. But we'll get there. So we want the logged in user to be somebody. Let me pull this out. And we want a friend with no trips. This is going to be another user. And I want to say user add friend, this friend with no trips. So it's getting a little gross here. I'm going to separate these so we can see the arrange and the act and the assert. But we'll come back and deal with the grossness. The question is, will this pass? And I don't know. I'm going to take out the assertion for now to commit this test. So just by running it and having it green, it's green because it has no assertion. But let me see. Yeah, it's going to go out to this trip thing and find the trips for this user. I have a bad feeling about this. Wait, it did it. Well, let's see. XCT assert, let's just try nil. Okay, that worked. I'm not sure that this one adds any value anymore, but I'll leave it there. Let's see about this. Friend with no trips, and we add the user. We have some duplication as far as like this person is logged in. This is really the oddball that there is nobody logged in. A guest. It's really good to watch Sandro Mancuso's screencast of this, his original screencast. It's a lot more polished. But he talks about how, well, typically if there's somebody you don't need to show off the capabilities of your website, your social network. You want to show some public data, so there's no logged in user. That person is a guest. That he would express that as that. But this one is logged in. I think what I want to do is I want to change this to, shouldn't the new test throw an exception? That's where I'm a little puzzled, because I thought that's a very good question. Thank you, Swiggy. Because shouldn't it get in there and say it is if it's a friend? And hi. Thank you for pausing me. Here I'm just eager to move forward. Didn't it come here? Let's find out with a quick look at coverage. Oh, it didn't go through there. Okay. Interesting. Thank you, Swiggy. You may be correct. Like, why? And it does seem like we never hit there. All right. What if it's the other way? Is it, let's try it this way. friend with no trips, add friend, the user. Let's try that. There we go. Okay. That's better. There's our problem. It's like, don't do that. You can't call that. Thank you. All right, so same trick as before. Let's extract this, extract and override. So this will be find trips. Actually, let me we'll do this in steps. So do extract. I really love how TCR does this, and I should think about using it during work. Extract. This is going to be trips by user, something like that. Trips for user. And that's a commit. And I want to take private off. And I want to override it. So let's return empty for now. And let's see, trips for, let's pull this out as a variable, a property, a variable. Come on, I can't do that. I can do that. So this will be the, I'm not sure about naming. Dubbed trips might be good enough. Let me pull this up and make it a property. And this should still pass. It passes easily because nothing's calling it. Let's come back to this and let's fix this up. So here. Okay, yeah. So friendship, it's not mutual friendship like Facebook friends. It's unidirectional following, like on Mastodon. So let's reverse these and say we're going to add the user, and this, let's assert that we get an empty. Okay, we'll fix this up, but I think this will, what? What's the problem here? Oh, trip doesn't conform to equatable. Now here's a refactoring that I think is safe. It's actually adding behavior, but it's not removing behavior, and that would be to go to trip and say, you can see trip has a whole lot in it, and say it's equatable. Let's make it equatable. Nope. What's wrong? Oh, it didn't like that. I think I'm so used to structs where you get a whole lot of stuff for free. Okay. Let me back this out. Let's add an extension. I don't know what to do for here. What do you think? Maybe. Let me try something else. Again, trying to move in smaller steps. Let's say the trips count should be 0. Not look at the trip itself, just ask the array. There we go. Okay, that got a little hairy there. But I'm glad we found our way out. All right, things I want to clean up around here. I really want to tell the trip service that the stubbed trips, it's like, let's stub that to be empty. Let's be explicit about this. So that becomes a var. That should still pass. And we can get rid of the return. Kind of like the one-liner when it's just throwing stuff back. Super easy. You know, there's really nothing here to test. But we're testing it by running the tests and seeing tests fail. We can see tests fail by saying, let's add a trip in here. Yep. Okay, now let's clean up this messy mess here. A friend with no trips, where we move all users to the setup, possibly. I think I definitely want the user in there. In fact, let me extract that. Now we have clear duplication between these two, and pull this up. Now, bit of nuance is that this will work. It will work, and I recommend against this. Mainly from my fear that somebody will add something in user that will cause persistent effects in the system. It's a legacy system. I don't know what's going on. So I really want to create a user each time. Let's make this a var. And come on, split it. It's not going to split it for me. Nope, it's not. All right. Let's see, user. When you add trips to the user, they will be persisted between tests. Yes. So that's the kind of thing that you want to tear down. Even though, well, the way it works is that for each test, an instance of this is created. So they are actually separate users. It's only if they're communicating to some global underneath, which it could be very easily. But it's not like this is when you run multiple tests, it's not like we're going to create one instance of trip service tests and keep calling it multiple times. Instead, what it does is it creates an instance for each test to keep them separate. So user, let's set user to nil, declare it out. How are we doing? A friend with no trips. I kind of like pulling that out too, because the fact that we have to go through this rigmarole, this nonsense, a little funny. Also, most of the time we're going to have trip service use the logged in user. This is the only case where we set it to nil. So let me do something else. Let me also move this up. So that should let us get rid of that line. Get rid of that. Just use a friend. No trips will be obvious in the test. Let's try it. Friend. It's the friendship that is the important thing that Swiggy caught me on. All right, so yeah, because since it's unidirectional, we should be able to now go like that. And this is getting to be a little long here, but let's pull this up and say, let's add this as a friend and see if this is all good. That's pretty good. Okay. So that's if there are no trips. What if a person does have trips when we want to return those? I guess that would be the next test. If we look at our coverage, and I should set it up so it doesn't show this little window all the time. How do I do that? Coverage. Activate coverage view. Let me turn that off. So the coverage, it looks pretty good, but this is a case where, yeah, but we're not checking, we're professionals. We want to check different things. We want to put on our QA hats and say, what about if there is something now? How am I going to do equality? Trip is a gross class when it should be a struct, but I can't change that. So let me, let's add an extension to trip on equatable. And let's say they're equal if they are the identical. The left-hand side is identical to the right-hand side. That is the same instance. Then we should be okay. So now I think I can go back and make this a little more obvious, where we assert that the trips, oh, it doesn't like that. No, it did like that. So what's it? Hey, go away. Go away. Not sure why it's ticked off there. Oh, that's just leftover. It's a ghost error. Okay, so that's the change I will make to say there is no comparison for equality. So we add that by saying it's the same instance. Yuck. Ah, hey, thank you, Daniel, for the follow. It always startles me now because that's still a pretty new thing that I set up recently. Good to have you, and it's always fun if you could say hello in the chat and share, if you don't mind, where in the world you are. It's I'd like to know where people are because folks are from all over. It is a small world. All right, so now we should be able to say, let's test that a friend has a couple of trips and we get those trips back. All right. Yep. Thank you, Mudshark. Mudshark's sitting there in Sweden. Who else is here? We got some lurkers. Say hi. Even if you're passing through. Hey, Daniel. Thanks for the follow. Let's test a friend with trips, right? Where the stub trips are going to be to, and again, let's go by sort of intention here. Something that I've gotten better at, but I wasn't as strong before I joined Industrial Logic. Industrial Logic has made me a better programmer. I'm so excited to share. A couple of trips, like one to Sweden and another to Japan. Right? So let's create this. This is going to be a trip. It has no properties, whatever. That if we do this, I think we should be able to say we get those back. And we do. Nice. Once again, let me pull these out so that they're out of the way. I'm going to stick them up here and change them. I'm going to just do this in one shot here. Whoop, come on. Like that. Where we're just going to create them. Oh, I see. I can't split it when it becomes a property. If I move this in here, now I can split it because it's a variable. Got it. And we'll get rid of Sweden and Japan. And that should all be golden. And that might be enough. Do we still need this? I'm not sure that we need this anymore. I don't think that this adds any value. If the friend has no trips, and we know you're going to get, well, are you going to get an empty array or are you going to get nil? Okay, we'll keep it there because it's not the API I would design, but it is what it is. So maybe we keep it just because we have nil here and empty here. So this is looking pretty good. What else can I clean up? Now, think about this. The tests themselves are pretty nice and small. Trip service, stub trips to Sweden and Japan. And we get it for that friend and we get those trips back. How's the coverage? Looking fine. These closing braces here, who cares? They're just weird. But everything is green, again, except for a closing brace. And of course, the things that we don't want to call during tests are red because we don't want to call them. This helps to identify the edges of your system and the things that have, they get into other parts of the system that you don't want. And then maybe we can clean that up as far as how it's implemented. But it's looking pretty good. Let's see. The stubbed trips. For the user. Right, exactly. It's like Swiggy. These things down here, it's like, this really doesn't belong. Which is cool. It's part of the discovery process of working with legacy code, at the same time being very careful and trying to stick, excuse me. Oh, that mute didn't work at all. Apologize. Hopefully you can still hear me, but my mute button is broken. Yeah, it identifies the parts that we don't want in here. And, oh, I got carried away. That you want to stick to the changes you make to the production code. You want to be automated or very carefully safe. Like this is the only change I made that is like, yeah, we need this. I mean, it will be helpful to have this for testing. So, clearly we're not going to get into any values of trip. That's not part of it. It's just not part of the exercise. Now, dummy server. Oh, we haven't checked more than one friend. We need to iterate over all the friends. Okay, so here's a danger. And this is where code coverage can get you into trouble, because it's like, 100%. Yes, but for a loop, and I go into this in my book, like how many tests do I need to write against this type of code or that type of code? in particular for like a conditional, that's 2 tests. It should be, you should check whether it's true or false. Oh, so that means we should have like maybe some people who, a couple of people who are friends, and yeah, maybe one that isn't, because we want to exercise this to be false. And anytime you have a loop, you should do that 0 times and twice or more. But this is a principle where they're 0, 1, many is good, and in this case, the many covers the 1. So 0 is good, and many is good. So let's add a friend. So that's like first friend. Let's think about this. The logged in user we're getting the users. Is this right? Here I am questioning the code. Oh, we need to add somebody else. Okay. Yes, a second friend or a second follower. Friend is kind of a misleading term here. So it's a typo there. Why didn't it alert me to the typo? It's supposed to. Like is WIH in my dictionary? Gosh. Commit that. Right, so we need a user that's not a friend. All right, this is going to get a little complicated, but let's do it. So not a friend. I'm getting a little confused. We want to create another user. Let's look back at the friendship here. Friend, add friend of the user. So we want a second friend. Let's see if we can't do this here. We want a second friend. I think it is rather friend than follower. Friend adds user to their list of friends to allow user to see friends' trips. Let's create second friend. Move the add friend into the tests. We'll see. Yeah. Let me pull this out. Try back in the tests. So this will be another friend. Oh, this is wrong then. We need this stubbed trips is going to have to say get the trips for the friend and return them. Ah, okay. This is going to be a little challenging. You know what? We're about at time. Debating. Where to go? We're about at time, and I just drank my last sip of coffee. That kind of brings our time to an end. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to capture these and put them into a comment here. How about that? All right, how's this? This will tell me where to continue, but I can't leave a failing test and commit it because I'm using TCR. So instead, I'm adding a whole bunch of ugly comments, but your notes about what to do next. And I think that we'll pick it up next time. Next time, we'll keep going on this, and that will prompt us to change how this stubbing is working, because that we need to associate the trips like with a friend. So gonna have to find our way through here. And that is what we'll do next time. All right. So for those of you who have watched this whole thing, first, thanks for those who joined live. So good. So glad to have your input and for you to catch me and say, John, whoa. Like, let's see that thing fail. Shouldn't it fail? And so for those of you who are watching after the fact on Twitch for 1 week before Twitch tosses it out the window, or on YouTube, follow, subscribe, ring the bell, train the algorithms so that my stuff keeps showing up for you. And if you don't like it, don't, or you can change your mind. But thank you. And that is all we have. I will see you then, hopefully next week. Take care.